Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by offering my deepest condolences to the family and friends of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, who was tragically shot to death outside of what is supposed to be a sacred place of worship, the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara.
When I first learned of these allegations, it shocked me. And then when I thought about these allegations even further, I became very angry. A Canadian citizen was killed in Canada by a foreign government.
Who was Canadian leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar? Canada has accused India of being linked to the murder of Sikh leader on Canadian soil, fueling a significant rift between the two countries. Who was the man, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, at the center of those tensions? Hardeep Singh Nijjar was born in the district of Jalandhar in the northern Indian state of Punjab. As a young man in 1997, he moved to Canada, where he married, had 2 sons and worked as a plumber. Settled in the province of British Columbia, he also made a name for himself as a vocal advocate for the creation of Khalistan, a separate homeland for Sikhs, who are a religious minority that makes up 2% of its Indian population. He has been labeled a terrorist by India, accused of, among other activities, being the mastermind behind the Khalistan Tiger Force, KTF, a banned militant group in the country. He was 45 years old when he was shot dead by the 2 masked gunmen outside a Sikh temple in a Vancouver suburb on the June summer evening this year. Those who close to him said he was warned by the Canadian intelligence services before his death about the threats to his safety. India has always firmly denied any involvement in his killing and called the allegations by Mr. Trudeau absurd. To his supporters, Mr. Nijjar, who became a Canadian citizen in 2007, was a peaceful advocate for Sikh independence in British Columbia and a man who cared deeply about his community. A large memorial has been set up for him outside the Sore Gurdwara doors where he served as a president. His funeral was attended by hundreds. He was so full of energy. But in India, he was wanted under the India's Terrorist Act for several cases, including a 2007 cinema bombing in Punjab that killed 6 people and injured 40. And the 2009 assassination of 6 Indian politicians. In 2020, a statement by the Indian government accused him of being actively involved in the operationalization, networking, training and financing KTF members. He had also been accused of running terrorist training camps in British Columbia for supporters ready to carry out the attacks in India. In July 2022, India's National Investigation Agency, which probes terror-related crimes in the country, announced a $1.2 million for any information on Mr. Nijjar. Media reports of his alleged terrorist activities began surfacing in India and later in Canada in 2016. At that time, India reported its concerns about Mr. Nijjar to Canadian authorities. Canadian police said in 2016 that they were aware of the allegations leveled against Mr. Nijjar, but he was never charged in Canada. Mr. Nijjar himself wrote a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that year about the allegations. In the letter reported on by Canadian media at the time, he identifies himself as a Sikh nationalist who believes in and supports Sikhs' rights to self-determination and independence of Indian-occupied Punjab through a future referendum. But he added, "I have never believed in, supported or have been involved in any violent activity." At the time of his death, he had been planning a non-binding referendum for Sikhs living in British Columbia on the creation of an independent state in India, part of a global campaign by US-based group Sikhs for Justice, which is banned in India. Sikh separatist movement has long been a source of tension in Canada-India relationship, which analysts have said is now at all-time low. India has strongly opposed the Khalistan movement. All the mainstream political parties, including in Punjab, have denounced violence and separatism. The demand for Khalistan peaked in India in the 1980s with an armed insurgency, which was later crushed. Thousands of people were killed during the violence. The movement also resulted in 2 of the most controversial moments in Indian history. Indian troops stormed the Golden Temple, the holiest site for Sikhs, to flush out armed separatists who were sheltering in the complex. The operation, ordered by then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, resulted in many deaths and caused damage to the temple. A few months later, she was shot dead by two of her six bodyguards, who were upset with her orders. Her death led to days of rioting in Delhi, in which thousands of Sikhs were killed. The movement is not prominent in Punjab now, and several groups vocally opposed it. Its roots in both Canada and Britain can also be traced back to the 1980s, as diaspora groups reacted to the events unfolding in India. The issue came to the head in 1985 when a bomb exploded on an Air India flight from Toronto to London, killing all 329 people on board. After a lengthy investigation, two Sikh separatists in British Columbia were acquitted of murder and conspiracy charges in 2005. The third man was also found guilty of manslaughter for his role in making the bomb. Minister Narendra Modi has repeatedly accused Canada of not doing enough to quell Sikh protests and anti-India activities in Canada. Supporters of Khalistan in Canada maintain that the movement is peaceful and they have been a target of disinformation campaigns and harassment by the India. Other Sikhs have distanced themselves from the separatist movement and said that it does not represent the view of majority of the Sikhs in the country. The secular Indian journalists are of the view that nobody saw him spew venom against anyone or be angry. You may disagree with him on Khalistan, but he had very right to ask for it. Thank you very much.